Good morning. Today I'm going to review the Lab 9, which was muscular fitness testing, to go over the review points to make sure that you're prepared to do well on the quiz coming up this week, and also to help prepare you for the final exam as well. So we had the review points listed here. So first off, as far as the methods for assessing dynamic and isokinetic strength, for that I'm really referring to the methods that we used in class. So in class, we did just one of each, so the multi-rep max bench press protocol. But I would also throw in that even though we did not do the 1 rep max, I would still like for you to be familiar with the 1 rep max protocol. And we'll talk about that down on point number 4, okay? And then the isokinetic strength testing was with the Biodex. So as far as what to know for that one, kind of the basics of the setup, the fact that we had to do a lot of adjustments on the chair to make sure that the subject, their upper leg was supported fully on the seat bottom, and then that we had to secure their torso and the leg that was being measured with the different straps. We also then had to set the limits of the range of motion for the joint that we were measuring, which in our case was knee extension and flexion. So we had to set the limits for extension, set the limits for flexion. We had to weigh the limb, and then we had to set the angle at 90 degrees. Once we did that, we got started with our protocol. And the specific protocol that we did involved 3 sets of 5. Each set was done at a different velocity. And in our case, the velocity increased as the sets went, and as we were measuring concentric force production, the force production fell or declined as the velocity went up. Okay, so just the basics of how we perform the Biodex test would be all you would need to be familiar with for the quiz. Unfortunately, I can't test you on the protocol specifically because that would just take too long, obviously. Okay, so next bullet point is the difference between muscular endurance and muscular strength testing. Mainly, it's the intensity. Remember, we had a rep number that we associated with each test for muscular endurance testing. Typically, the rep number is greater than 12, so we would need to make sure that we chose a muscular endurance test that would be appropriate to allow our subject to do greater than 12 reps. The best argument I gave for you all in class about why we might need to choose one or the other is because not everyone could potentially do 12 push-ups because they're too heavy or they're too weak, for example. Therefore, we might need to do a different alternative test such as the YMCA bench press protocol. As far as muscular strength goes, typically we're working in a rep range there of 1 to 3 reps. So obviously, since our duration or rep number is lower, our intensity is going to be much higher for a muscular strength test. We're looking at near maximal loads for a strength test and sub-maximal loads for a muscular endurance test. Bullet point number 3, appropriateness of each test for various populations. Now, we didn't really discuss that in class, but I feel like that's pretty intuitive that when we're working with a well-experienced and athletic population, that muscular strength testing using the 1 rep max protocol is appropriate. However, if somebody has less experience with resistance training, or they might fit into a population such as elderly or children, or if they have an orthopedic injury of the upper body, then we would probably want to withhold from doing maximal testing. So in that case, maybe the multi-rep max protocol could be a more appropriate choice for those populations, as we would be staying away from maximal loading since we're doing like a 6 RM or an 8 RM, for example. Okay. Just recall that we want to have with that multi-rep max protocol, the number we choose for our rep number should be less than, I'm going to say less than 10, but I want to double check that because I feel like it could also be 12. Less than 10. My gut instinct was correct. Okay, so there we go. As the pro says here, the multi-rep max protocol may be more experienced for less experienced general or diseased populations, as indicated there, where the 1 rep max protocol is the most true measure of strength. However, it might be intimidating for some populations, not reliable with novice lifters, etc. Now, for strength testing, we could obviously do the force plate but that's not going to be as available for many populations. Plus, it's typically done more of a lower body based testing protocols versus upper body based. However, arguably, lower body testing is more appropriate for all populations because it's more applicable to not only athletics but also activities of daily living. Typically, though, the barbell testing setup limits us to upper body testing with most populations due to the lack of or the less experience and technique required with a bench press versus a deadlift or a squat. Now, for muscular endurance, appropriateness, I've mentioned that earlier. Like if somebody can do push-ups more than 12, then that's typically your go-to test. But if they can't do that many push-ups, then doing something like the the YMCA bench press could be good. Also, then consider, let me just bump to this last slide here. That there are tests that are developed specifically for the senior fitness population. So the senior fitness test, I don't have it outlined on this PowerPoint, but there are much less intense tests that mimic activities of daily living that were designed to use with an elderly population. With some people, don't just pay attention to the number of years they are. Remember, their lifestyle really determines their level of experience and how they can handle certain tests. So pay attention to their lifestyle. And if they have had a poor lifestyle, they're older, chronic diseases are present, injuries are present, then some of these senior fitness tests could be appropriate for like a muscular endurance or a muscular strength choice. Okay. All right, let's go back to the lab. Where are we here? Kind of already touched on this with the multi-rep versus the one rep. I may ask you to describe the one rep max protocol for me, y'all. So although we did not do the one rep max protocol, refer back to this slide. Which is slide number 8, and be able to verbalize to me the one rep max protocol. So roughly our target for total number of sets, which is 3 to 5. Okay, the first 2 sets are a pure warm up. First set is performed in a range of 5 to 10 reps at 40 to 60% of estimated one rep max. We then rest for 1 minute. Set 2, we're going to increase the load to 60 to 80% of the estimated one rep max and do 3 to 5 repetitions. Okay. We then rest for 2 to 3 minutes there. Okay. Third set is our first actual 1RM attempt. We're going to bump the load up to roughly 90% of the estimated one rep max and make our attempts there. From that point forward, our goal then is to complete 1 rep successfully, fail on the second rep. For every set that we do from here on after, we're going to rest for 3 to 5 minutes, with our goal then again being finishing this in 5 total sets, which includes the 2 warm-up sets, seeing what our successful load we can lift for 1 repetition only. Okay, our absolute strength then is our score for the 1 rep max, the load lifted. Our relative strength is to take that number divided by our body mass to give us a relative strength assessment. And typically for comparison to norms, we're going to use that relative strength number to compare to the norms that have been established for this specific protocol. Okay. With that being said, also review the protocol for the multi-rep max as well, because I may ask you to describe this one. Okay, so be familiar with and be able to verbally describe to me either the 1 rep max protocol or the multi-rep max protocol. Now, we kind of already touched on this as well, just the protocols for all the tests that we did in the lab. So, with the force plate, that's the only one really that talked about today. But what are the angles that we're looking for the hip with either the isometric squat or the isometric mid-thigh pull? So know those. And then just kind of the general protocol. It's pretty simple, really. You're just going to do a maximal pull or push against the immovable load exerted from the bar, hold it for about 3 seconds, and we usually do 3 attempts. I mean, that's kind of the protocol. That's why force plates are good, because it is so easy. Okay. As far as the outcomes go, with this one, what I would just point out to you all is that from the multi-rep max number that we get at the end of the test, we can predict the 1RM using this equation here. So just be aware that we can do that. You know, if I ask you what a possible outcome is from the multi-rep max protocol, mention to me that we can predict the 1RM using the results of the multi-rep, and that the lower the rep number is that we choose to perform a multi-rep on, the more accurate the prediction for the 1RM max would be. Okay? If we then bump back over to the, where's the force plate stuff? You know, just be aware and be able to verbalize that from the measurements we take from the force plate, that we can predict a 1RM max number from there as well. It is well correlated. The peak force is the number that we would use to correlate to the 1RM max data from a different subject. You know, another thing we kind of hinted on in the lab is the importance of the asymmetry. So the larger the asymmetry is, the more likely somebody is to either be injured currently or be recovering from an injury. Other than that, there's really, well, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Not directly mentioned in these bullet points, but the force velocity curve. Where is that on the PowerPoint? Pretty much here, in the concentric phase, we have the inverse relationship. So as velocity goes up, force production will go down. In the eccentric phase, it is a direct relationship, which means as the velocity goes up, the force should go up as well. Okay. In the isometric phase, there is no movement, so there's no shortening or lengthening. So I think that about does it. All of those review points that we went over should prepare you to do well on the quiz this coming week. So again, that quiz is going to be the next time that we meet in class. Okay, so I'll see you all then. Have a great rest of the weekend. Take care.